In this week's update, I'm going to share what I do during a feasibility week. Okay, so I'm on startup number 2. I'm starting to refine. I've done 4 or 5 startups before, but starting to refine the process now as I carry on with this 12 SaaS startups in 12 months. So, broadly speaking, what am I doing over each 4-week cycle? I'll talk about that, look specifically at what I do during a feasibility sprint, and then give you a quick update as well on where we're at with the second startup idea. So essentially, I'm doing a 4-week cycle. That starts with discovery. So essentially, I talked about this more last week. Coming up with lots of ideas, refining them down, starting to sort of speak to people, get a bit of market analysis going on. Talked about those techniques in last week's video, and that will carry on into week 2. Now I've got some help doing that. A couple of people are helping out there, starting to do a few discovery calls for me to do a bit of analysis, help me sort of question my thinking as well. So thanks Simon Conway particularly for that. And that's carrying on into week 2. But week 2's main focus, where I'm just headphones on and getting to work, getting to build stuff, is feasibility. Specifically, what I'm doing is going from, okay, cool, there's an opportunity here. I see a unique value proposition. I see a high-level concept, to what can I actually deliver in 2 weeks of building. Specifically, I want to come out of this week, and I'm just about to wrap up with it tomorrow morning, or by the time you get this. Essentially, the big, key, scary, what I call black hole features, they've been cleared up. Either I can build them, or I can't and I need to do a workaround, or simply I can't find a way to do this with the limited time, therefore I'm not going to do it. So to break down, then what I'll do as I go into next week, and sort of start on that, because obviously I'm building a few things already, smash out an MVP, right? Fully focused, 5 days, just build, based on quite specific specifications that I'm going to create before. So I go from jobs to be done down to features. I'll talk about that shortly. And then week 4, all about launch, right? So prep, warming people up, getting the word out, depending on the channels and what makes sense for that specific product. So let's talk about exactly what I've been doing over this week. So just to remind you, what am I focused on with this second product? It's basically like a startup idea management platform. This is something that I really need myself, right? Not just generating ideas. That's great. We can do that with something like ChatGPT nowadays, but actually organizing and assessing objectively a bunch of ideas and refining them down, saying what I will and will not focus on, and having ways of getting feedback, etc. on that. So what is the high level concept? Yeah, sort of startup idea generator / management platform. My unique value proposition is to find and validate the right startup idea for you. So a big part of this is you can go on ChatGPT and get a nice generic list of startup ideas, but you're not going to do them because they're not relevant. You could equally, some interesting competitive alternatives. Just brainstorming is a way that people do this. Looking at current trends, using things like the Google Sheets that I've set up. So I think there's something here, and that's why I'm sort of moving forward with this. And so what I do when I come to my feasibility sprint is, firstly, I will get just a list of jobs to be done. Right? What are the sort of key things that people want to do? So those are things like, well, users want to add an existing idea, they want to get feedback on their idea, they might want to generate new ideas, these kinds of things. Then what I'll do is get some wireframes done. It doesn't make sense for me to make these perfect. However, you will see if anyone does use Figma, I do use components, right? So I'm using an existing library. Here, I'm going to be using this probably for all of my projects, just to reduce design time. So it's drag and drop as much as possible, so I don't have to spend lots of time building new components. But then just get a concept out. So things like playing around with ideas. Okay, so sort of manually adding ideas. Yeah, you could auto generate in some way. Maybe you could favorite. If you've got 20 ideas, like favoriting some makes sense. Hey, it would be cool to see trends for the week. To trigger new ideas, for example. Map out ways to add new ideas, and then really assess an idea. This is the thing I see as really, really valuable with this idea. Sorry, this concept. Ways that I currently assess and explain what those are, how to score them, auto-generate scores, break down like the other elements of the problem, sort of like a lean canvas here as well. It would be really nice to have competitive landscape mapped out. These kinds of things. I get a feel for the product and go, oh yeah, great. Actually, I do think there's something here that's going to go beyond, why someone would just go and use ChatGPT, right, to sort of assess, come up with startup ideas. Once I've got a high level concept together, I've got two big questions, right? One is, can I actually build this stuff, particularly with the limitations of not being that technical, only having 2 weeks? And secondly is, what's actually most important? So I have to continue doing some discovery and just let my thoughts evolve as well, with help from, thank you, Simon, as well on the discovery, right? So by the time the end of the feasibility sprint, I'm going to have researched what's possible and match that with what I think actually makes sense to build in the final version. Now, what I do during feasibility is, main thing is basically identifying what I call black hole features. What are the things that are just going to be an absolute drain on time and that could really push me back for weeks? Because I want to assess those really quickly. Now, I'm going to go through exact examples this is literally what I've been working on all week. Just go through the big task in order of importance and see, okay, what's possible there, and give myself 1 day to work on each complex feature or functionality. Example, I looked at, I can do a basic OpenAI integration. There's something called threads. This is the way that you can connect like a whole conversation together, right? So there's sort of a memory in place. Looked at that, okay, actually I don't really need it. I think that's overkill. So rather than spending a whole day on it, or 2 days or even 3, I just said, I've looked at this thing before. I don't think I actually need it when I come to working on it. So let's park that. Can I instead just simply auto-generate and store separate ideas, right? So I get a single chunk message from ChatGPT. Can I then actually break that down and store it as data, so that rather than just one idea, those are 10 separate ideas stored separately? Right, sounds pretty simple, but there's some complexity there for me personally. But great, I did it. It took me a morning to do. Awesome. Great. Good learning as well on the way. Then I will look at things like, okay, so I thought it'd be really nice, like not essential, but a real wow factor to come on and have this really nice competitive analysis graph or visual in some way. I can generate the content for that with ChatGPT, some well-structured prompts as well. But I was like, actually, you know what? This is going to take me a couple of days to like map the data, store it in a certain way, get it on the graph properly, save changes, all these kind of things. And I was like, I'm nearly there, but I feel like I'm going to get stuck for a few more days. So I said, okay, fine, let's just park it. Ticked it off the list. We'll leave it for now. We can come back to it. And it's definitely not an MVP feature, not an essential part of its viability. Some things I'll look at and go, I think they're complex, and when you get to them and they're not, right? So I'd love the idea of having a command bar. So wherever you are in the app, you're looking at trends, you're maybe adding a new idea, you're generating new ideas. You can just quickly press Command K or N or whatever, and just add an idea, right? So the whole point in this product is, you're there, it's dynamic, you're thinking, you're ideating. I was like, that's a cool thing to have. I've got no idea how complex that is. Great, it took me one plugin and one tiny workflow. It took me about 5 minutes to do. Great, awesome, saved myself a day. So I like the idea of just batching by day and saying, look, I've got 5 days to do all of this, so that I'm forced to make quite tough decisions about what to include and what not to include. And you'll see a couple of things I still need to do here. Now, again, the time constraint is really important because it forces you to make tough decisions. Really good example of this is I looked at, can I extract trends, right? So really nice to see what are the sort of cool, exciting topics going on right now. Exploding topics are great at this. Google Trends as well, if prompted properly or put in the right input. I looked at it and said, great, actually, it's really not very complex. I can do that. I've already got some data coming in. I just would need to format it and be a bit more selective about it. But I also looked and said, well, exploding topics would be great, but it's $250 per month. So what if I just manually curate trends for the first week? Super easy to do, save me a load of time, and gets me to validate, is this something people actually use? Awesome. I said, yeah, let's do that. Right. So rather than doing something I could do, I actually realized there's an easier workaround. Just do it manually to start. If there's value, then add that functionality. So I'll go through these potential black holes. Right? Black hole features, i.e. things that I could get really, really stuck on for weeks, and then go, right, what can we do? What can we not do? And then really simple, just plan a sprint for myself. So next week is going to be the build MVP, and breaking it down but for jobs to be done, translated to specific functionality. Example, right? User wants to add an existing idea. They have, i.e. manually add. What do I need to do for that? User wants to get feedback on their idea from friends and family. Okay, great. What do I need to do to make that happen? And final little tip that I'm testing out this time, Greg Heisenberg, really top entrepreneur, has this story of one of his apps, a messaging app, failing, and the thing that made it work and see usage massively shoot up was just getting a sound technician to create this special notification noise with coconuts. It's the kind of thing you'd never spend money on, right? Or most people wouldn't. They'd ignore and be like, well, what the hell? It doesn't really matter what noise the notification is, but it was the thing that made the product work. So lesson there being, it's these wow features, these moments of magic sometimes that we could be this close to product market fit, and we just need to change direction very slightly with a small, could be a tiny wow or unique feature to help us get over the line, right? So really start seeing traction. So I'm always trying to think about that. And I've got some ideas about what that could be in the product, but I want to just keep that there so that I remember pre-launch to really, really try to make this stand out. And then list of nice to haves, things I would like to have, but are not absolutely essential. And that's really it, right? So Feasibility Week is really just going after the big, chunky, scary tasks, so that when I go into my MVP week, I know exactly what I'm going to do, and I don't think there's going to be any unknowns. So it's going to be a really nice, I say nice, pretty intense, but smooth sprint, 12 hours a day, just no code, designing, getting shit done, so that I can then launch it in the final week. So hope that was helpful. Any questions about approaching feasibility yourself, do reach out and let me know, whether this is valuable and whether you are enjoying these kind of videos.